My name's JC McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Good morning, and welcome to Miss Cleo's Storytelling Corner. Well, I hope you all had a wonderful week, and now you're here today sitting down, and I know you couldn't wait until Miss Cleo came back this week. I know it. Right? Yeah, I could I could hear you. Right, Miss Cleo. That's okay. You're here and I love you. Today, we're going to read from More Than Merely Eyes Can See. I'm going to read from this book occasionally because I like it. And it's about different people's lives. And it kind of opens us up to how other people live, other people think, how other people were brought up. And that's I think it's very important. Because when I went into the soup kitchen, as I tell you many times, I thought I knew it all. I thought I knew exactly what was what, but I didn't. People grow up in different ways. They have different ways of thinking. We look at the world today. Look at our government. We think differently. All kinds of people in our world, and to just focus on our little world. I don't think we could do that these days. I don't think that's a safe way to be, because if we do that, we eliminate so many people and so many relationships that we could have that we won't have if we stay in our small little worlds. Today, I'm going to tell you the story or the life of Addison. These don't have last names, and Addison may be or may not be his name. I don't know. There's some of these stories that the names are not their own. And then there are some people who insisted on having their names, proper names in the book, because they said this is their legacy. And this was written by Susan Carey. And she is a Hartford resident and a member of Grace Lutheran Church. And this is where these stories come from the people who go to Grace Lutheran Church at their meal on, it must be on Thursday now. They've been doing this for, I think, 15, 16 years or so or more. And it kind of changed after COVID, so it's a little different now. I see people out in front of Grace Lutheran on Thursday nights, so I don't know what Friday, if they do anything on Friday or not. And I live very close to Grace Lutheran Church. So the name of this story is For the Enjoyment of Others. There's a saying here: happiness quite unshared can scarcely be called happiness. It has no taste. From Charlotte Bronte. Daryl said, hosting the Friday gathering isn't a chore, it's fun. He left the cooking to the chefs and turned his attention to the enjoyment of the community. He did it with music. Darrell invited musicians of all abilities to perform at the Friday gathering. One of them was Addison. I met Addison in 2008 when I was searching for a church home. He was one of the people I noticed the first time I visited Grace. A tall white man. He sat near the front and used a Braille book. A petite woman, also white, sat next to him and used a Braille book. I learned later that she was his friend Janet. Their Braille books were oversized 3-ring binders about 3 inches thick, filled with pages of dense paper imprinted with raised dots that formed the Braille alphabet. When we stood during the service, Addison and Janet rested their books on the back of the pew in front of them. The books looked heavy, and their bulky size made them awkward to manage. Addison and Janice balanced the open books with one hand while the other lightly swept across the page, sensing each line and reading the pattern of dots. Addison was born prematurely in 1952 in Philadelphia. He was placed in an incubator with an oxygen-rich atmosphere. It was common in those years to treat preemie babies this way to increase their chances of survival. But there were side effects. In 1954, researchers established that high oxygen levels could damage the retina and cause blindness. One pediatrician estimated that from the 1940s to 1953, approximately 7,000 babies in the United States were blinded by oxygen therapy, including Addison and singer-songwriter Stevie Wonder. The increase of blindness in babies was severe enough that it was called an epidemic. Addison was the youngest of 3 boys. His family loved music, and they each had their favorite that they listened to on the radio and the record player. My parents liked big band music, Addison said. They liked the rhythm and they danced to it. My grandparents listened to classical music, and my uncle listened to jazz. My brothers played rock and roll records. I liked all of it. He had a piano in the living room when I was growing up. Addison said, it had belonged to my grandparents on my father's side of the family. My mother played it, and she encouraged me to play. When I was 3, I climbed up on the piano stool and started picking out tunes by ear. Jingle Bells was the first song I played. Addison began attending the Overbrook School for the Blind in Philadelphia when he was 3 years old. When he was 7, his family moved to Glenside, just north of Philadelphia. Addison was enrolled in Overbrook's residential program and came home on weekends. Classes at Overbrook covered all the basic subjects: math, science, English, language, arts, and social studies. The curriculum also included art, music, and gym. Addison thrived especially in music. In third grade, he, like all the third grade students, started learning how to read music in Braille. At Overlook, Addison took piano lessons, was the substitute organist for chapel services, and sang with the elementary school choir and junior high choir. Overbrook is where Addison got his first taste of performing for the public. There were annual spring and Christmas concerts, he said. I was happy to play in groups and to play solo and to share music with others. When Addison was 15, his family moved to West Hartford, Connecticut, and he enrolled at the Oak Hill School, located in the northwest corner of Hartford, a 15-minute drive from home. For the first time in years, I lived at home and commuted to school, with roots extending back to the 1890s. Oak Hill, like Overbrook, served the educational needs of students who were blind. At Oak Hill, Addison continued to study music. Making music was becoming a driving force in his life, and he began to imagine himself as a performer, a professional musician. After graduating from Oak Hill, he continued to the Hart School of Music at the University of Hartford. At Hart, Addison studied piano and jazz. He graduated magna cum laude. Well, you know what I mean. Cum laude. In 1976, with a concentration in piano, and went on to earn his artist diploma in 1978. I've been fortunate to be able to play what I enjoy. I'm just as comfortable with pop and rock and roll as I am with jazz and classical music. Addison's career has spanned nearly 50 years. He performed throughout Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York as a pianist with the Al Jarvis Orchestra, the Sam Pasco Orchestra, and the Jerry Carrillo Orchestra. He was a guest DJ for jazz programs on WWUH, a radio station licensed to the University of Hartford. He accompanied ballet students at the Greater Hartford Academy of the Arts and for the Hart School's Community Division. He gave private piano lessons, sang barbershop, and still performs solo for public and private events. Addison had been an active member of Grace since he and his family came to Connecticut. When Darrell invited musicians to share their talent with the Friday gathering, it was natural to include Addison. On the night he played, his friend Janet, also a member of Grace, came too, until she passed away in 2019. Janet was born in Hartford in 1948. She and her twin sister were born almost 2 months premature, and like Addison, placed in incubators with oxygen-rich atmospheres. The damage to their retinas was not immediate, though Janet had some vision that gradually faded by the time she started school. Her sister said all her life Janet remembered the colors of blue and purple. She remembered the sun. There we're going to stop for a short intermission, and we will be right back. I'll see you in a moment.
It's harmful, right? But did you know that even after the smoke clears, the danger
Don't
remains?
go to sleep
This is
over
called
there.
third-hand smoke. Third-hand smoke is the toxic residue left behind on surfaces like furniture, walls, or even
okay.
These harmful chemicals can linger for days, weeks, or even months.
I
Young
never
children
knew
and
anything
pets are
about
especially vulnerable. They
you
can
know.
ingest these toxins simply by touching contaminated surfaces and then putting their hands or toys in their mouth.
Oh.
The best way to protect your loved ones: make your home and car completely smoke-free. Remember, it's not just about the smoke you see, but the unseen toxins leave behind.
Well, I did
Protect
that.
your
Because
family
I
from
didn't know
third-hand
whether I
smoke.
should have
Choose
it
a
before I
smoke-free
started
environment.
Janet or introduce her and then have it. I didn't.
I feel that Hartford Parent University is a great asset to our community. It actually helped me to advocate for my children in ways that I didn't think I was going to be able to. And it's very important to know all the it's important to know the resources that we do have, because a lot of parents don't know about the resources. They don't know where to look. They don't know where to start. Some parents feel that, they're by themselves. They don't know who they can turn to for any help. But Hartford Parent University is one I can say you can turn to and actually get the resources and insight. And it's helpful for me as well as other parents just to be an advocate for their children and also themselves.
Welcome back to Miss Cleo's Storytelling Corner. We're reading For the Enjoyment of Others, and we're reading a story about Addison and Janice, who are both blind, and they lived in Connecticut. They went to the Oakdale School. At least Addison did. We haven't finished, just started Janice's part of the story. But Addison is a musician and was blinded at childbirth. He wasn't born blind. That was a surprise when I read that. He wasn't born blind. He became blind because he was born prematurely, and at that time they used oxygen-rich they put them in oxygen-rich atmospheres. I don't quite know what that is, but I'm assuming it's a room that has more oxygen than maybe a normal room. And look that up. You can look that up and see exactly what that is. And it had side effects. It caused blindness. It caused Addison's blindness. And it says it caused Stevie Wonder's blindness. And it caused Janice's blindness, but not right away. It says, her sister says, all her life she remembered the color of blue and purple. She remembered the sun. Well, that's a beautiful memory, isn't it? If you were blown, that's a beautiful memory, I think. And we're going to continue with Janice's story. Janice's twin suffered vision loss too, but not to the same extent. Consequently, the girls were schooled differently. At 6 years old, Janet began at the Oak Hill School while her sister attended public school. Janet lived at Oak Hill during the week and went home on weekends. It caused a separation in the family, especially between us. Janice's twin said, "My father was broken-hearted. He asked the doctor if he could donate his eyes to Janice, but that wasn't possible." At Oak Hill, Janice learned how to be self-reliant. Her sister said she was smart, she was fearless, and she was strong. When Janice came home on weekends, she had her own way of doing things. She was confident and knew how to take care of herself. I missed her when she was away. I didn't have the same kind of confidence, and I struggled with the difference between us. We were torn apart, and it was never the same. They should have enrolled me at Oak Hill, too, because it would have helped me learn how to be strong and independent like Janet. Janet was schooled in all the subjects that led to a high school diploma. She took advantage of Oak Hill music program and learned to sing, tap dance, and play the piano. Janet was good at harmonizing. Her sister said on the radio she listened to Patience and Prudence, two sisters who sang harmony together, and we wanted to be like them. Their big hit was Tonight You Belong to Me. Does anybody remember that song? Tonight you belong to somebody else, but tonight you belong to me, just a little old me. That's kind of how it went. I don't believe I remember that. That's kind of how that song went. Janet sang alto and let me sing the lead. Singing brought us together. Janet was determined to support herself. After graduating from Oak Hill in 1966, she went to New York City and trained to become a medical transcriptionist. She lived independently in New York. Her sister recalls she was there 2 years and took the bus by herself, visiting all around the city. Janet came back to Connecticut and worked at St. Raphael Hospital in New Haven. Then she went to St. Francis Medical Center in Hartford and worked there for over 30 years until she retired. She made a career of it. Janet loved to wear clothes. Her sister remembers she was organized and had a system so that she could put outfits together. She knew which shoes to wear with each outfit, which blouse or scarf went well with a suit. She liked to wear jewelry, especially dangling earrings. She enjoyed knowing that she looked good. If I didn't compliment her on an outfit, she'd ask straight out, "How do I look today?" When Janet retired from St. Francis, she asked the members of Grace to start a clothing program for the neighborhood. Years later, when she was recognized as the Asylum Hill Neighborhood's Volunteer of the Month, her motivation for the clothing bank was detailed in an article for the neighborhood newsletter. She realized that she would no longer need the many business suits that she had acquired over the years, but rather than take them to one of the many second-hand stores that would sell them, she talked to her fellow members at Grace about starting a free clothing bank. The program was named Janet's Closet, and it opened to the public for 2 hours each Wednesday. More than clothing, Janet's Closet offered people another pathway to belonging. There are neighbors who collect and donate clothing and small household goods, others who sort donations and organize clothes, and still others who greet neighbors when the doors are open. It radiates a coffee clutch ambiance, so that stopping in to say hello is as welcomed as browsing for clothing. Addison and Janice met at an Oak Hill alumni event. He heard her play the piano and sing with a group of girlfriends, and their music got his attention. Addison and Janice crossed paths at other alumni programs, and a friendship grew between them, shared by their pleasure of singing and making music together. After Janet married and was later widowed, she moved closer to Hartford and joined the congregation at Grace. On Sunday mornings, she sat with Addison at worship, was a cantor for the liturgy, and sang harmony with the hymns. After she retired, she moved to the Asylum Hill neighborhood and lived nearby on Woodland Street. She loved being within walking distance to the church. Her sister remembered. When Addison played on Friday nights, Janice often came too. She stood next to the piano and sang while Addison accompanied her. Doo-wop, doo-wop, and hits from the 50s and 60s and 70s were her favorites. Mine too. Addison said songs like Teenager in Love, Earth Angel, and It's My Party we both liked. Let Me Go to Him by Dionne Warwick. One night we danced to White Christmas from a recording by the Drifters. Janice liked to play the piano on Friday nights too. When Addison took a break, it was her turn to play. Janet loved music. I knew which music she liked best. I missed playing for her and listening to her. Diners at the Friday gathering enjoyed the duet. When Janice sang, diners stopped their conversation and sang along with her. They marveled that Addison could play without seeing the keys and were even more amazed that he could play an endless stream of music from memory. Watching him play, to see his fingers jump up and down the keyboard, it never gets old, a diner said. I don't know how he does it. Addison brought song lists he had printed in Braille and occasionally stopped to read one before starting a new piece. Diners peeked at the text when it lay on top of the piano and were fascinated by it. When Janet wasn't singing, Addison played selections of classical and jazz music. It seems like he could play anything, a diner said. Addison's outlook on performing and all the roles any of us fill is that you should always do a good job. It doesn't matter whether you volunteered for it or whether you're paid a little or a lot. It doesn't matter what the size of the audience is. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about this in a speech, Sweep Streets as Good as Michelangelo Painted Pictures, Addison said, recalling Dr. King's remarks in a speech. If it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures, sweep streets like Beethoven composed music, sweep streets like Leontine Price sings before the Metropolitan Opera, sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry, sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lives a great street sweeper who swept his job well. This attitude applies to hospitality and to being a chef too. Addison said, those who can't afford to pay deserve just as good a meal as and to be welcomed just as warmly as those who pay. Some blind people expect mediocrity because they're afraid of asking for too much. They want to be perceived as a burden or helpless. Let me read that again. They don't want to be perceived as a burden or helpless. Addison plays for the Friday gathering. He said, because even people who are poor enjoy good music. Those who can't afford to pay are worthy of it just the same. Addison plays for the pleasure of his listeners regardless of their circumstances. What do you get out of it? I asked him. When I've heard and then learned a good piece of music, it's a shame to keep it just in the practice room, Addison answered. Good music is meant to be shared. I want the diners to have a good time, and then I have a good time too. Live music is more than entertainment at the Friday gathering. It brings diners together. The meal is transformed and the evening becomes an event. There is a reason to linger. Conversations take a pause. The chaos subsides. The diners move in unison to the rhythm of the music. Hans Christian Andersen, a master storyteller, said, "Where words fail, music speaks." One evening, as I was looking at the portraits in the dining hall, I was surprised to find Walter's picture there. Walter, a black man, is the custodian in the building where I live. I hadn't noticed him at a Friday gathering before. When I saw Walter a few days later, I said, "You came to my church for dinner, and I missed you. I saw your portrait on the wall at church, and it's a great picture of you." "I only came once," Walter said. There were Russian ballerinas performing the Nutcracker, and I wanted my granddaughter to see them. I could never afford tickets to the theater. This was so much better. We were right there on the floor where they danced. When we got home, my granddaughters twirled and danced around and pretended to be ballerinas. They loved it. All varieties of musicians made their way to the Friday gathering. Maxine, a jazz saxophonist who had performed in New York City's clubs, Oasis, a local Christian rock band, and the KC Sisters, 5 sisters with perfect pitch and harmony. Daryl invited people from the neighborhood to sing while he accompanied them on guitar. Now, I don't know this. Naya, Leah's daughters, sang when she was still in elementary school. I have to apologize for that word because I really don't think I said that right. Anaya. Maybe that's right. Anaya's, Leah's sister, sang when she was still in elementary school. She's one of us, a diner said. He invited Cammie, the granddaughter of a kitchen volunteer from Jamaica, and Sophie, a young black woman who immigrated from England. The dining hall quieted to welcome their voices and erupted with applause in appreciation of their talent. Norman, a black man and a jazz and blues pianist, lived in the Asylum Hill neighborhood. He never had formal music education and said he couldn't read music. He played by ear and called himself a freelance musician. Norman learned about the Friday gathering from Chef Lewis and asked if he could play on Friday. When Lewis cooked, he came out of the kitchen to sing alongside Norman. When there was no live music, the host played recordings from CDs. Pastor Rick asked the diners for requests, and there were plenty. Ray Charles, Louis Armstrong, Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, Dr. John, Prince, Gladys Knight. Some nights, Sonny got up and danced along. He's a pretty good dancer too, Pastor Rick said. I asked Addison, what's the difference between live music and the recording? And he answered immediately, fidelity. The quality of the sound is different when it comes out of a speaker. When the sound is produced by a machine, if the music is live, it comes from your body. He explains, it's a singular moment with the musicians, the room, the acoustics, and the audience. The audience is more than spectators. They participate in the performance. There is a continuous feedback loop between the musician and the audience that weaves them together. There's a synchrony in the moment that cannot be duplicated, that makes each performance unique and intimate. A machine can't reproduce that, Addison said. Magic happens when musicians click as if they spring from the same body, with lungs breathing and hearts beating in unison. It's an infectious spirit. Singers and audiences get caught up in the music too. There is a link between music and our brains, a connection to emotions, memory, movement, and coordination. Head bopping, toes tapping, shoulders rocking, fingers drumming, voices singing, all responding to the same groove. Oliver Sacks, a neurologist and author, investigated how music influences the way we experience the world. He observed that rhythm can be contagious within a group. Writing about accompanying one of his patients to a concert as part of his research, he reflected, I observed all this, but I found myself unable to remain a detached observer. I realized that I too was moving, stamping, clapping with the music, and soon lost all my usual difference and inhibitions and joined the crowd in communal dancing. Sachs concludes that music functions in its power to bring people together, producing a sense of collectivity and community. When musicians share the essence of themselves, it isn't a chore. It is fun. They bring their whole being to the moment and invite diners to be their whole selves too. At the Friday gathering, live music is the icing on the cake. The meal is delicious and it's plentiful, but it is music, especially live music, that expresses our collective joy. The French word, here we go. Joie de vivre. Well, it's French, and it's joyous, and it's a word. So I'm going to spell it, and if someone has a pencil or something, they can look it up, because I'll look it up later. Joie space DE space VIVRE. All right, so now you can call Stan and tell him what that word is. Say that word. And I hope I have not offended anybody. Okay? I wish I did know it. Collective. I know. I should have known it, and I should have, but I didn't read it before. So, in those exhilarating moments, we belong to each other. Wow. You know, he did it express what storytellers go through, and I suppose every performer who does live performances go through when they're in front of an audience. The audience and the performer connect. And this explained exactly how it is and how wonderful it is, because it is wonderful. I love that story. I hope that I read it adequately enough so you enjoyed it too. I really loved it, and love what they said in this. The same is true with storytelling as it is with music, but probably music could get you there faster than storytelling. The storyteller really has to be pretty good, but music could just get that bone. You know, sometimes when I come in here, Stan is listening to his jazz or his music, and he's just lost in it. He just loves that stuff. He connects to the machine. He really connects and really loves it. And so I understand it. I see him with that. And the little song, that I sang, just, I didn't really sing it. I tried to sing it, but I remember that, and I remember enjoying that, and us girls getting together and trying to sing that same song when I was a teenager, and other songs. And there was one other thing that I just didn't know. From the 40s to 1953, 7,000 babies were affected by that oxygen, increased oxygen. Wow. And that's how I always wondered what happened to why Stevie Wonder was blind. Was he born blind? But he wasn't born blind, and neither was Addison or Janet or a lot of other people. But I hope that story opened up maybe somebody's world, maybe Janice's strength in being blind, but didn't stop her from learning the world, from organizing her clothes, from getting on the subway, from doing her thing. Nothing stopped her. Nothing stopped Addison from becoming a great musician. So we all can be great in something. As Martin Luther King said, be the best street sweeper you can. So I think we're going to go for one more commercial, and then we're going to close when we come back. So I'll see you in a moment.
I feel that Hartford Parent University is a great asset to our community. It actually helped me to advocate for my children in ways that I didn't think I was going to be able to. And it's very important to know all the It's important to know the resources that we do have, because a lot of parents don't know about the resources. They don't know where to look. They don't know where to start. Some parents feel that, they're by themselves. They don't know who they can turn to for any help, but Hartford Parent University is one I can say you can turn to and actually get the resources and insight. And it's helpful for me as well as other parents just to be an advocate for their children and also themselves.
Well, that's it for this week. And I thank you very much for being with me and listening to my reading. And I hope that someone was enriched by the story. And for now, remember, read a little, write a little, dream big. And I'll see you next week.